Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. MashaAllah, I see a lot of kids today. So you'll get a jinn story tonight, inshallah. You know, MashaAllah, it's amazing, the nature of man. If something is scary, we're supposed to go away from it, not approach it. But the children want to hear a scary story, but they don't want to do anything with it either. Try telling a child, don't go in the room, it's locked. Don't go in there. And see what happens. Okay, inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله تبارك وتعالى عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا. أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. صدق الله العظيم. Alhamdulillah, continue on with the stories of Umar radiallahu ta'ala an. Before I begin with the story, tell me some of the bulletin points from the last session that you remember or recall, preferably the kids, inshallah, and the sisters, of course. Because the brothers, mashallah, we have enough of a discussion after the halaqah anyways. Do you remember any of the highlight points from the last session of Umar radiallahu an? I don't mention just stories. I try to mention the moral of the lesson or the story. Pitch in, inshallah. Go ahead, bismillah. Okay, so let's have all the adults partake in it as well. So you cannot or you shouldn't enter into a home without their permission, the homeowners. I'm sorry? Yeah, so no spying. What else? Respect other people's privacy. What else? So hiding a fault or a sin of another. Enter through the main door of the home. The sisters? I'm sure most of you were here last time as well. Sorry? What was that again? Oh, okay, I'm sorry, yeah, okay. Okay, what else? My sisters, I'd like to hear something from you also. No?
He wore humble clothes.
Okay. Remember something I mentioned, that when an individual's iman becomes or goes to a greater height, then he or she, they're able to witness things of the extraordinary for themselves. Subhanallah, as I mentioned last time, I'll mention another story which I didn't cover last time. During the time of Umar radiallahu an. Now this relates to the level of iman, understand that. During his time, a man was holding his child upon his shoulders. Umar radiallahu ta'ala an saw this, and a beautiful child he was that the man was carrying. So Umar radiallahu anh mentioned, how beautiful is he? Just upon seeing the kid. So the father mentioned that there is a strange story behind to my son as well. That whilst my wife was expecting, there was a call to go in the path of Allah, and I left. But before leaving, I mentioned to my wife that I placed this soon-to-be child that's within your womb in the protection of Allah, and I'm out, I'm gone, I have to go. So he left. He mentioned by the time I had come back, the news came before me that my wife and my child both have passed away. She wasn't able to live for too long. Until I was seated with a few of my friends during the night, and we heard a cry of a newborn. So I asked my friends, where is that coming from? Where is this noise coming from? They mentioned every night that we sit here, we hear someone crying, but we just don't know from where. So that man himself, he stood up. He went and he followed where the noise was coming from until he came across a grave, and the grave was his own wife's grave. And the noise is coming within the grave. So he quickly opens the grave and he finds that the child is resting by the lap of the mother, alive. So he realizes this and he quickly grabs onto the boy, takes him out of the grave. And a voice is heard from the unseen that, O servant of Allah, had you left the mother of this child in the protection of Allah when you left, you would have found her to be alive also.
Oh, she only said the child.
Yes. Before leaving, the father mentioned, I leave this child within the protection of Allah. I need to go. And he left. But the voice after that incident which occurred, the voice mentioned, O servant of Allah, had you left the mother in the protection of Allah as well, you would have found her to be alive today. So this is during the time of Umar radiallahu anhu that took place. To us, we're thinking, whoa, how strange is that? So another miracle that took place during the time of Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, as he's delivering the khutbah, all of a sudden he shouts out, Ya Sariya al-Jabal, Ya Sariya al-Jabal. So the people mention, how strange is this? He's delivering his khutbah, all of a sudden he pauses and he says, Ya Sariya, which is the name of a tribe. Hold fast onto the mountain. Hold fast the mountain. Remain on the mountain or go towards the mountain. People found this to be strange. After he had come down from the minbar, the Sahaba asked, what was that for? He mentioned that during my speech, Allah had inspired me to an extent that I felt that the Muslim army, which was out fighting the polytheists, they were being attacked from all sides. And I felt appropriate to just shout out by saying that, O Sariya, O group of Muslims, go on top of the mountain. Because if you climb the mountain, then the enemy will not be able to defeat you. But if you remain on the ground beneath, you're going to be defeated. A month passed by, and that Sariya, that group of men, had come to Umar radiallahu anhu, and they mentioned, Oh Amir al-Mu'mineen, something strange happened. We did become victorious, but during the midst of battle, in the most intense period of the battle, it was as if we were about to lose until we heard a voice stating to us, Oh Ya Sariya al-Jabal, go to the mountain, go to the mountain. We quickly went to the mountain. Because of that, we became victorious. Had it not been for the voice, we would have lost today. So something else that took place during the time of Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu. A few of the other events, remember, all of these events that I've compiled before you happened over a time span of 10.5 years during the reign of Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, during his rule as Amir al-Mu'mineen. So for us to really cover it in a few sessions, it doesn't justify it, but we try to get as much as we can and keep moving forward, inshallah. Another event that took place during the time of Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, as he was scouting the streets of Medina, he came across a home that there was a dialogue between the mother and the daughter. You guys recall that? You guys remember that? I'm sure my sisters do. And the mother mentioned to the daughter that, Oh my daughter, add some water into the milk. And the daughter mentioned, Oh my mom, don't you know that the leader of the believers, Umar radiallahu ta'ala anh, has forbade us to do that? We've been prohibited from adding milk to water or water to milk. Don't you know? So the mom said, it's not like Umar is watching. Umar isn't watching, just add it. The daughter mentioned, if Umar isn't watching, then the Rabb of Umar is watching. the maker, the creator, Allah is watching if Umar isn't watching. Right after Umar radiallahu ta'ala, he heard this response from this girl. He went home, took note of which house it was as he passed by. By morning, he sent one of his messengers to go find out, who is that family? What a blessed girl, it is, or she is, that she said this to her own mother. So upon knowing it's just a mom and a daughter, and the daughter has not been wed yet. So the message came back, and Umar radiallahu ta'ala, he gathered his sons. He said, would any one of you like to marry a very righteous servant of Allah, a female? Any one of you would like to marry? So the two of the sons mentioned, oh, our father, we're already married. Asim radiallahu ta'ala mentioned, I have yet to be married, so I'm willing to marry her. Then the proposal came before the mother, and that daughter was wed to the son of Umar radiallahu ta'ala. They had a daughter, and then the daughter had who? Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, who's also considered to be the 5th Khalifa. So what was the criteria of Umar radiallahu ta'ala approaching the daughter of that mother? Piety. That if she's that conscious of Allah in all of her affairs, how conscious could she get? So that level of iman, it was what Umar radiallahu ta'ala was looking for marriage for one of his sons. Another story of Umar radiallahu ta'ala, as he was passing by a home, he heard children crying. So he knocked and he asked the mother that, what's happening? Why are your children crying? And she had a pot with boiling water. She was preparing something. So she mentioned they're crying out of hunger. And I'm just trying to put them to sleep. What's in the pot? Just nothing but boiling water, so that they can think something is being made, and in the process they'll fall asleep. So Umar radiallahu ta'ala, he mentioned, fine. He quickly went back to Bayt al-Mal. He took his slave Aslam, his servant Aslam, along with him, said, oh Aslam, take all of this food, these bags and dough and dates, take everything and put it on my shoulders, put it on my back. So Aslam mentioned, oh Amir al-Mu'mineen, allow me to carry it. He mentioned, no Aslam, will you carry my burden upon Yawm al-Qiyamah? Now the gist of all of these stories, how conscious Umar radiallahu anhu was about that day. Yes, that day, the day of judgment. So when we base our lives and our actions based on what the consequences will be, then our actions will be more humble. Our actions will be more, they'll be well-fashioned in a polite manner. Because we're doing it not for the moment, but for the akhirah. So Umar radiallahu anh mentioned, no, Aslam, put it on my back. I'd like to carry the weight, because would you carry my weight on that day? You won't. So put it on my back. He went, he prepared the food, and he did his best to make whatever he could. Then he fed the children. And he asked the mother to feed the children, and he sat there with Aslam. Aslam mentioned, Amir al-Mu'mineen, we should get up and go now. You came to feed them, you've made food, you prepared food for them, and they've eaten, now let's go. He said, no, I'd like to see them cheerful and happy. I want to see them playing around, just as how I saw them crying. So I will not leave until I see them playing around. So the children finally, after they had ate to a stomach full, then they went around the house and started playing around. That was the time when Umar radiallahu ta'ala got up and left. Another story of Umar radiallahu ta'ala referring to how simple of a man he was, his simplicity. Once he left the city of Medina, and on his way home, during the midday, blistering heat of Arabia, he saw a young boy riding a donkey. So he asked the boy, he said, oh boy, could you allow me to ride along with you? The weather, the heat, the distance. So the boy came off the donkey right away. He said, Amir al-Mu'mineen, it's all yours. I'll take the donkey, I'll walk the donkey, you ride on it, it's all yours. Umar radiallahu anh mentioned, no, I will sit along with you. I will sit along with you. So he mentioned, fine, you sit in the front, I will sit in the back. So the boy mentioned, Amir al-Mu'mineen, you sit in the front, I will sit in the back. Umar radiallahu anh mentioned, no, you want to give me more of the comfortable place upon the donkey than your own self? No, I will be the one to sit on the back. You remain in the front. It's more of a comfortable cushion in the front. I will sit in the back. The boy insisted, no. Umar radiallahu anh mentioned, listen, I will ride along with you as long as I am seated in the back of the donkey. And he did. And in that manner, he entered into the city of Medina. And all of the people were watching. Now let's take that to our timeline. You know, I gotta make sure I'm in the driver's seat. No, I gotta make sure I'm in the passenger seat, because when we arrive at the destination, at the home, the family's waiting. They'll see who's sitting in the front, who's coming out first. You know, which door is more respectable. So all eyes will be on me. So I need that seat. So Umar radiallahu ta'ala, here he enters into the city of Medina, riding with a boy who has more of a comfortable position upon the donkey than even the leader of the believers himself. Now the story of the jinn. I think I have more attention now. Umar radiallahu ta'ala an, again, one of the companions by the name of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu an, he mentions once, as the Sahaba were seated around him, he was telling them of strange events that took place or that had happened. And from amongst them he mentioned that, during a day, one of the companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he walked into one of the alleys of Medina, and there he saw another man, and they had a wrestling match. And after wrestling the individual, the companion of Prophet of Allah defeat the other person. And the man who was defeated stood up and said, "One more round. I want to wrestle you again." So for the second time, the companion of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he beat him to the ground again. Now understand one thing, as some of the children and some of the adults, wrestling is also sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but not the type of wrestling we are accustomed to. Okay? The base, pretty much the only principle within a wrestling match is that the moment you put the back of your opponent on the ground flat, that's defeat. It's not that you get him in a headlock and you do body slam and then you climb a few stairs on the minbar and they just... It's not that, okay? I mean, wrestling was once very civilized. So the companion he beat the individual, he put his back on the ground, and then this time around he sat on his chest and he said, "I will not let you go. To me, you seem to be a very strange person. How weak are you? What's with your hands, the shape of your hands? Or are you a jinn?" So the individual said, "Yes, I am a jinn. By Allah, I am a jinn." So the companion mentioned, "I will not let you go until you tell me which dua can I recite to be safeguarded from the evil effects of your kind. I'm not letting you go until you tell me which dua to recite, that if I were to recite, I will be safeguarded, protected from the evil effects of your kind, of you and your kind." So the jinn mentioned Ayatul Kursi. Do the children know Ayatul Kursi? If not, let's hope your parents know it. Since off subject, I had mentioned this once before. One of the companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was traveling abroad. He came across a home which was haunted. And the locals had told him, "Whatever you do, don't sleep in that house overnight. Because any traveler who happens to pass by, if they station at that home, we never see them again. So don't sleep in that one house. It's haunted for whatever reason." So the companion mentioned, fine. As night fell, he went into that house and fell asleep. And in the midst of night, he gets awakened by a noise, by a voice. He wakes up and he sees this, dark figure, unpleasant sight, and how fearsome that sight is for him. And after seeing who and what it is, he starts to recite some of the ayats of the Quran. And after reciting these verses, as he would recite a verse of the Quran, that thing would recite back the same verse. So it's like, for example, you say, "Qul huwallahu ahad." The thing goes, "Qul huwallahu ahad." Allahu samad. He responds, Allahu samad. So he's reciting these ayats of the Quran, and that thing is responding until the companion started to recite Allahu la ilaha illahu al-hayyul qayyum. He finished the entire surah Ayatul Kursi, and by the time he had completed it, that thing kept approaching him until it got really close to him. Then it just vanished, it disappeared, it turned into dust. So a voice came from the unseen that today you have turned an evil jinn to dust because of the recitation of Ayatul Kursi. The Ayatul Kursi that companion of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam recited. There's a solution to every problem from the Quran. And the thing is, I tell my children, I tell my family, I tell my relatives, and I tell all of you as well, that regardless of which era or time you're living in, hold fast upon your adiyah, upon the ayats of the Quran and the du'as of Rasulullah ﷺ that He's prescribed for us. Literally, it's like a prescription. If you don't take it in the morning and the evening, you're prone to danger. Something's gonna happen. Like an ill person, if they don't take their prescribed medication, they won't feel well and it'll get worse. We're all sick and ill. And it's the Quran, it's the ayats of the Quran and the du'as of Rasulullah ﷺ that He's taught us that guarantee us protection. Subhanallah, we find it more convenient and understanding that if a man or if a person hires a bodyguard, he's protected. But how about you just recite a few ayats in the morning and in the evening? You know who's your guard? Allah. I wasn't here for today's khutbah, today's Jummah, but my son was telling me about what's happening around in the social media and the news and so and so. And again, I beg you, Bismillahi alladhi la yadurru ma'a ismihi shay'un fil ardi wa la fis samawati was-sami'ul alim. How many times in the morning? 3 times in the morning and 3 times in the evening. Prophet of Allah has promised us no harm will come to you except death. If death is meant for you, you can't run from it. Besides that, no harm will come to you. Why have we become so lenient and weak within our faith that we no longer put our trust within these du'as? I would tend to every other resort and means in securing myself and my possessions and my family and my relatives, but I don't look into the Quran or the Sunnah of Rasulullah ﷺ. And then at the end of the day, when something happens, then there's no one to blame but yourself. These du'as, guys, these du'as, don't take them lightly. It's a part of our iman. Allah is giving you that protection, take it. Don't discard it. So Ayatul Kursi. So after finding out from the jinn what the verse of the Quran is, right away the Sahaba asked Abdullah ibn Masud, Abdullah ibn Masud radiallahu anhu, tell us who was that Sahabi who beat the jinn? He said, who else would it be? It was Umar. Who else would it be? It was Umar radiallahu anhu. You see? When the level of iman goes there, the jinn, what? So what? Who are you? You want to wrestle me? Come. Subhanallah. And we look at our state today. We see a small little spider go in there. Save me. And the spider's probably screaming the same thing, save me. The story of Omar radiallahu ta'ala an, how just he was when it had come to the residents of Medina. And take a moral, take a few points out of this story as well. So once, Umar radiallahu ta'ala an, he took revenge on behalf of the oppressed against the oppressor. So in one narration it was mentioned it was a slave, another mention it was just a man. He comes before Umar radiallahu ta'ala an crying, weeping, hurt. He comes before Umar radiallahu ta'ala an, and he mentions that, oh, Amir al-Mu'mineen, I come to you to find refuge from an oppressor, from oppression. Please save me, protect me. So Umar radiallahu ta'ala, upon seeing him in that state, in that delicate situation, he said, you've come to the right place. And he became angry that who was it who caused pain to this man or to this slave? And he said, you came to the right place, you're protected. You've been given protection. Tell me what happened. So the man said, I had a race. I raced the son of Amr ibn al-As radiallahu anhuma, 2 of the great Sahabis of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I raced the son of Amr radiallahu ta'ala an. And after beating him in the race, he became upset. He took a whip and he beat me for it. And this man was an Egyptian, a slave. He asked, so the son of Amr asked, let's race. They raced, the slave won the race, and now Amr, the son of Amr, radiallahu ta'ala an, beats the slave for the defeat that he suffered. So after this happening, he took the whip, and as he started beating the slave, he kept on saying, Ana ibn al-akramain. I am the son of the 2 highly respected people, referring to his father, the companion of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and his grandfather, also the companion of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And as he's hitting him, he keeps saying this. So Umar radiallahu ta'ala, upon hearing this, he summoned both the father, Umar radiallahu ta'ala, as well as his son. And after summoning them, the son came behind the father. He knew what was about to happen and what happened with the man that he beat. So Umar radiallahu ta'ala, he mentioned, where is that slave? Where is the Egyptian who came to me and complained about oppression earlier? So that man came forth. Umar radiallahu ta'ala, he gave him his whip. He said, here, take it, beat him. Take this whip and beat him. So in front of the father, in front of the companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the slave, the Egyptian, he took the whip and he started beating him on the back. And the son was put against the tree. So as this man keeps beating, the Sahaba mentioned initially we thought, he's only seeking his revenge. But until he beat him so much that we, the companions, started to assume, please let him go. We had hoped that he would stop now. Let him go. And Umar radiallahu ta'ala, as he was along the side of that man, he kept saying, hit this man who is the son of the two, highly respected. Keep hitting him. So then, after hitting him, Umar radiallahu ta'ala, he mentions to the slave, now hit Umar radiallahu ta'ala on his head. So the slave mentioned, Amir al-Mu'mineen, it was the fault of his son, not his. Why should I hit him? So Umar radiallahu ta'ala, he looked at the father, Umar radiallahu ta'ala, and he mentioned, oh Umar, since when did you start to make men a slave when their mothers had given birth to them as in being in the state of free? Since when did you start making people become slaves whilst their mothers had given birth to them as free men? So Umar ibn al-As radiallahu ta'ala, he mentions to Amir al-Mu'mineen, he says, Umar radiallahu an, I had no knowledge of this incident. Neither did my son come to me and tell me about this. I had no knowledge of this. So then he was let go. Now subhanallah, everyone was equal. Regardless of who you were, which clan you had come from, whether you were a leader, a king, a slave, whoever you may have been, if you were at fault, you were at fault. It wasn't that money could buy you out of everything or at anything. That wasn't the way how things were done in that time. This is what it means to being just. No one is sold. No one is bought. Whatever the case, whatever the circumstances may have been, it was the truth that would always come forth. Never a lie, never deception, never treachery, never fear. Whatever is haqq needs to be brought forth. So this was the behavior of Umar radiallahu ta'ala an. Another story of Umar radiallahu ta'ala an and his behavior with some of the youngsters of Medina. Once, a young boy by the name of Sinan ibn Salma, he was a slave. He went out with some other of the youngsters, the boys of Medina, and they started to pick dry dates from the ground, the dates which had fallen from the trees. So as they started collecting them, they saw all of a sudden Umar radiallahu anhu walking towards them. So all of the boys, they ran. They all dispersed, went into their own direction. Whereas this one boy, the slave, he had gathered some of the dates within his cloth, and he looked at Umar radiallahu ta'ala, he mentioned, Amir al-Mu'mineen, I did not take or snatch the dates off the tree. I had picked them up from the ground. They're dry dates. So Umar radiallahu ta'ala had a look in his lap. He said, you spoke in the truth. And then the boy mentioned, look at this, how carefree was the boy with Umar radiallahu anhu. He mentioned, Amir al-Mu'mineen, could you stay besides me? Because the moment you leave, those boys are going to come back and they're going to bully me. And they'll take my dates from me. Can you please stay with me? So Umar radiallahu ta'ala mentioned, fine. He took the boy back to his home. Made sure that he isn't bullied or he isn't, his dates aren't taken from the other kids around. So the lesson is how easily he was approachable. Umar radiallahu ta'ala an. Another story of another slave that happened with Umar radiallahu ta'ala an. Umar radiallahu ta'ala, once he passed by a slave who was grazing goats. He's feeding the goats. Umar radiallahu an, he came by, he said, will you be willing to sell me a goat? Will you be willing to give me a goat? So the boy mentioned, these aren't mine. They are my master's. I don't have any possession or ownership of these goats. They belong to my master. So Umar radiallahu ta'ala, just to test the boy, he mentioned, why don't you just tell your master that a wolf ate one of the goats? No harm done. Which khutbah? Today's khutbah? What a coincidence, mashallah. I wasn't here. So Umar radiallahu mentioned, why don't you just tell your master that a wolf came by and ate a goat. He said, fine, if I say I do that, I go and I tell my master one of the goats is missing because of a wolf had come by and snatched it or ate it. But what will I tell Allah on the day of Qiyamah? Now, listen guys, my sisters, if this is the state or the stage of the iman of a child in that time, what would the stage of a Sahabi be? A young kid, a slave. He's telling, fine, I'll do that today, but what will I tell Allah on the day of Qiyamah? Umar radiallahu anh started to cry. He went to the master of the boy, he paid for his price, freed the boy, came back to the boy and said, listen, you're free to do as you like. Today you are a free man, a free child. I ask you, I have freed you for one reason only, so that on the day of Qiyamah you come before Allah and free me to my salvation. I bought your freedom for you today in this world with one intention, so that on the day of judgment you come before Allah and buy my freedom on that day. Every opportunity that they would get, they would take and invest in the akhirah. We have opportunities begging us, please, I'm open, just invest in me. No, I've got more important things to do. Someone is hungry, you know what, you'll manage somehow. Go make a living. You know, someone is sad, you're supposed to go console them, give them company, speak to them. Sometimes all it takes is for a person to lighten their shoulders, to just speak, and half of their worry is gone. And you feel, no, I'm busy, I've got too many things to do. Sometimes there's a major issue that's happening around you, and the cure to it, the remedy to it is something minute and small. You could have dealt it, you could have cured someone, but you felt, I don't have time. You let the opportunity go by. And then we wonder, how come goodness doesn't come to us? As long as we show goodness to others, we become the host of goodness in itself. That is the promise of Rasulullah ﷺ, that a mu'min, a Muslim is such that he's nothing but good. He goes on in distributing good. And our state and age in our era has become that each man or each woman for themselves. This is not how a community will run. Not even your own home will run that way. But if it does, that day will come where your children will say, Dad, you're on your own. Mom, you're on your own. And then we'll feel the pain then. So before that happens, we really need to be concerned about others. We need to be able to invest in our akhirah through any given opportunity that Allah presents before us. I also did look into the passing away of Umar radiallahu ta'ala, but it was such a lengthy narration mentioned within Imam Bukhari's Sahih, I figured there's so much that we can learn from it. So inshallah that, we'll leave it for the next session. So inshallah in the next session, I'll only mention the passing away of Umar radiallahu ta'ala and the lessons that we can learn from that. Also what happened and how was the next Khalifa selected. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us a very understanding of His deen. رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ سُبْحَانَكَ اللَّهُمَّ وَبِحَمْدِكَ أَشْهَدُ أَن لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا أَنْتَ أَسْتَغْفِرُكَ وَأَتُوبُ إِلَيْكَ جَزَاكُمُ اللَّهُ